everyone. That song always gets me pumped up. This show presented to you by Allstate. Happy to spend my Saturday with all of you. Of course, we have got three-time Pro Bowler D'Angelo Hall here. We've got my boy Mike Garafolo, and in for Mike Robb this week, Super Bowl champion Shaun O'Hara. How are you guys this morning?
Shaun, can you hear us?
Shaun, fantastic.
Merry Christmas.
Well, I'm, of course, in for Colleen. She's going to have, she's going to have all of that pre- and post-game coverage of those games that we talked about here on NFL Network later this afternoon. I am, of course, Jane Slater. Tweet us for the next 2 hours. We've got a couple of loyal fans that always tune in. That hashtag, of course, GMFB. Now, as I said, the Saturdays don't get any better than this. We've got not one, not two, but 3 games on the network, 2 of them on NFL Network. Bucks Lions at 1 p.m. Eastern, Niners Cards at 4:30. That one on Prime Video. And the triple header wraps up in Vegas. That is Raiders Dolphins right back here on NFL Network. But before we preview these matchups, Jeezy, we saw a little history last night.
Yes, we did, unless you had a little too much eggnog early. For me, it was Lafroig. I had myself a Scottish Christmas. There you go right there. That's how you dress for a Christmas game. And I'm warning you right now, the only person that covered more ground yesterday than Alvin Kamara was Jane Slater, who went to New Orleans to cover this game and is back in the chair ready for this one. Kamara already on the board with his first touchdown. Wasn't done there. There's number 2 as the Saints take a 14-7 lead there in the first quarter. Kamara still not done, putting the Saints up 24-14. Thoughts, Shaun O'Hara?
Smash mouth football, Mikey G. 264 yards on the ground. You had a big boys up front. We're doing a great job. All those runs in the middle of the defense.
This is that power football that you wouldn't necessarily expect from the Saints. He's counting. Kamara says, I got 4 right here as it's 31-27 here early in the fourth quarter. There's another one for Kamara to push them ahead 30. I mean, this is not what you expect from the Saints offense, but also not from this Vikings defense. They were not eliminated from the playoffs as of the start of this game. They are as of the start of the show this morning because Kamara says, I'm going to tie Ernie Nevers, 1929 Chicago Cardinals for the most rush touchdowns in a game in NFL history. How many was it for Kamara doing the Snow Angel? Yes, 6. Right there, D. Hall. What did you think of this performance that we saw from the Saints?
I mean, Alvin Kamara is an absolute beast. I don't think I've ever seen him rush the ball for 22 times in a game in a Saints uniform, but I tell you what, maybe that's the blueprint moving forward.
Career-high 155 rushing yards for Kamara in a 52-33 win for the Saints as they clinch the NFC South, Jane.
Yeah, and the craziest thing about that, guys, is obviously you saw what he did there. He is now 68 yards away from his first 1,000-yard rushing season. Says he wasn't focused on that, but you're pretty close. Now, here's an up-to-the-minute playoff picture in the NFC. Packers still on top at 11-3. Saints right behind them at 11-4. Still in the mix for the top seed, but Green Bay has the tiebreaker. By the way, the Bucks won't win the South, but they can lock up a playoff spot today, and we will get to them in a moment. So I wanted to ask you, Shaun, what was your biggest takeaway from that game? And, you know, when you look at this one, it really felt like it was the Alvin Kamara show.
Yeah, it was. And look, I think everybody's been focused on Drew Brees and his ribs and, you know, can he knock the rust off after having so much time off? But the thing that jumped out on me coming into the game when I saw the inactives, Andrus Peat out at left guard, Nick Easton out as well. So James Hurst is in at left guard. And yet this offensive line didn't miss a beat. Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz in the middle of that offensive line were just, I mean, they were gutting the defense of the Vikings. And to have that kind of option, these weren't Alvin Kamara speed option perimeter runs or getting, you know, we saw a couple of jet sweeps, but this was not perimeter running game. This was, we are going to run right down the middle of your defense. We are going to basically, you know, demoralize your entire squad by just pounding the rock. And on the 5th touchdown highlight, Teron Armstead takes the backside defensive end and plants him into the end zone. I mean, it was a total clinic from an offensive line standpoint. So offensively, for Stella to get her groove back, I think this run game is a great luxury.
I loved the reference there. You know, I think the one thing that stood out for me, guys, is Taysom Hill is such a weapon. When he joined that Saints roster, it was Sean Payton who said he's got his future quarterback in the building. And we all sort of laughed at the notion of that. Yes, he's a bit of the Swiss Army knife, the can-do-it-all guy. But I think he's more important than ever, given the fact that Drew Brees is coming off that injury. You saw points last night where sort of protecting the ribs. It seemed like there was a small hesitation. His game's so much better than last week. But when you have a larger menu for Taysom, particularly on that 4th and 1 play, he just allows you to extend the drives. I would like to see a little bit more Jameis Winston, though, next week, just so you've got yet another dynamic, another wrinkle to this offense.
Taysom Hill robbing Alvin Kamara of the chance to hold that rushing record alone by taking that 7th touchdown away from him. A little bit of bad news for the Saints. Wasn't all good. Quan Alexander, the linebacker, suffered a torn Achilles, as reported by our buddy Ian Rappaport yesterday. And that is a tough blow for a defense that acquired him and was really thriving off of his energy. This is a guy that had a lot of presence in San Francisco. In fact, the day he left San Francisco, there were some tears shed, including by Alexander, but he had found new life in New Orleans, was really energizing that defense and providing some much needed help on the second level of that defense. So they are going to be without Alexander the rest of the way. This is a really good defense this year, but you want to see how they're going to be able to overcome a loss like that there.
Yeah, G's, you're absolutely right. Not having Quan Alexander in the mix when you thought you'd have him. He is an ultra-athletic linebacker, can really do it all, can stop the run, can drop back in pass coverage. I was shedding a tear knowing that he was going to be out because he is that type of playmaker. But when you talk about this offense, and, you know, I know they rushed for 264 yards, and it was the Alvin Kamara show, but it just didn't quite look like Drew Brees, right? You know, some of the mistakes Drew was making, some of the things he didn't quite see, he almost threw it right into Eric Wilson's hand if it wasn't for Marquez Callaway, who made a great play as a receiver, looked like a DB out there. So if the Saints are ever short at DB, you can definitely throw that kid on the other side of the football. But I just don't think it's sustainable, right? This New Orleans-style offense is predicated on Drew Brees operating, being super precise with where he's going with the football. And I just don't think I saw that. And so I'm a little worried about this Saints team going into the playoffs.
All right, well, let's get to another game today. We're going to work our way back a little bit. Start with the nightcap. We have got the Dolphins.